12 Brain Hacks to Change Your Life. Introduction. In today's rapidly evolving world where distractions are endless, stress is chronic, and demands on our mental energy are higher than ever, the ability to master your own mind is no longer just a luxury, it's a necessity. The human brain, though incredibly powerful, is often underutilized or misdirected, influenced by outdated mental patterns, emotional conditioning, or habits formed through years of unconscious repetition. The introduction to 12 Brain Hacks to Change Your Life lays the groundwork for understanding that meaningful change doesn't come from sheer willpower alone, but from working with the brain's natural systems to promote transformation. Rooted in neuroscience and psychological research, this book introduces the concept that by understanding how the brain functions, how habits are formed, how thoughts shape emotions, and how attention can be trained, we can deliberately shift our behaviors and mental patterns toward greater health, productivity, happiness, and success. Rather than being a theoretical exploration, the book positions itself as a hands-on manual, offering practical tools, small mindset shifts, and evidence-based strategies that are easy to understand and implement in everyday life. The brain is not fixed, it's constantly adapting through neuroplasticity, and this process can be guided intentionally. The introduction also addresses a common modern dilemma. Why so many people, despite having access to information and motivation, still struggle to make lasting changes. It argues that the problem isn't a lack of desire but a lack of structure and brain-friendly techniques that truly align with how our minds are wired to learn and grow. By using these 12 targeted brain hacks, readers are encouraged to become active participants in their mental evolution, learning how to reprogram limiting beliefs, overcome procrastination, enhance focus, regulate emotions, and build resilience. The book doesn't promise instant results, but it does promise real results if the methods are applied consistently with intention. Whether you're looking to improve your career, strengthen relationships, increase creativity, or simply find more peace of mind, the brain is the common denominator, and it can be trained like a muscle. The introduction sets a motivational tone, inviting the reader to not just read, but to experiment, reflect, and take charge of their inner world. It emphasizes that each small change compounds over time and that transformation begins not by adding more to our already busy lives, but by rewiring the mental processes behind the choices we make every day. With a blend of scientific insight and everyday language, it reassures the reader that they don't need to be a neuroscientist to benefit from this book, just open-minded, curious, and willing to try. It also highlights that personal change is not about becoming someone else, but about becoming the most empowered version of yourself. The introduction serves as a mental warm-up, framing the rest of the book as a journey of self-discovery and growth through conscious engagement with the most powerful tool we have, the human brain. It encourages readers to let go of the myth that change is hard or that success is only for the few and instead embrace a new belief, that change is possible for anyone who learns how to work with their brain rather than against it. This sets the stage for the 12 chapters that follow, each offering a focused technique or hack to help readers unlock their full cognitive potential and change their lives from the inside out. Chapter 1, Rewire for Positivity, explores one of the most foundational yet underrated principles of personal transformation: the ability to shift your mindset from negative, reactive thinking to a more optimistic, empowering outlook that rewires your brain for long-term emotional resilience and mental well-being. It opens with the understanding that our brains are naturally wired to focus on threats, an evolutionary trait called the negativity bias, which helped our ancestors survive but now often traps us in cycles of anxiety, rumination, and pessimism in modern life. This chapter challenges that default setting by introducing the reader to the concept of neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to change its structure and function in response to repeated thoughts, emotions, and experiences. Simply put, what we focus on grows, and the more we think positively, the more our brain begins to build the neural pathways that support joy, gratitude, confidence, and emotional regulation. The chapter doesn't suggest ignoring problems or pretending life is perfect. Rather, it presents practical, science-backed strategies to create a mental environment where positive thoughts can take root and flourish, even during challenges. One of the key techniques discussed is the practice of daily gratitude, which has been shown in multiple studies to increase happiness, reduce depression, and strengthen relationships. By writing down 3 things you're grateful for every day, no matter how small, you begin training your brain to notice the good instead of scanning for the bad. Over time, this subtle shift rewires how your brain processes information, creating a positive feedback loop that supports emotional balance and optimism. The chapter also emphasizes the power of positive affirmations, not empty slogans but meaningful, present-tense statements that reflect who you are becoming. By repeating affirmations like, I am confident, I handle challenges with calm and clarity, or I am worthy of success, you begin to reshape your self-identity, influencing both your subconscious beliefs and conscious choices. Visualization is introduced as another powerful hack. Picturing yourself succeeding, healing, or growing in vivid detail helps the brain experience those outcomes as if they were already real, increasing motivation and confidence. Rewiring for positivity also involves learning to reframe negative experiences by shifting the narrative you tell yourself. Instead of thinking, I failed so I'm not good enough, you might reframe it to, this didn't go as planned but I'm learning and growing stronger. This shift doesn't deny pain, it honors it while empowering you to see beyond it. Mindfulness practices are highlighted as crucial for increasing self-awareness, breaking habitual negative thought patterns, and fostering a compassionate inner voice. Whether through meditation, deep breathing, or simply pausing to observe your thoughts without judgment, mindfulness helps interrupt the autopilot negativity loop and create space for more intentional, constructive thinking. The chapter also explores how your environment and social influences shape your mindset. Surrounding yourself with positive people, uplifting content, and encouraging messages helps reinforce the rewiring process, while toxic influences, whether they're people, media, or self-talk, can pull you back into old, unhelpful patterns. One particularly transformative insight from the chapter is the idea that positivity isn't a fixed personality trait, it's a skill that can be developed. Just like going to the gym strengthens your muscles, practicing positivity strengthens the mental pathways associated with joy, patience, confidence, and inner peace. It's not about being cheerful all the time, it's about learning how to bounce back faster, see challenges as opportunities, and view life through a lens of growth rather than fear. The chapter includes mini exercises like the 3 Good Things Journal, the Best Possible Self visualization, and the Flip the Script reframing practice to help readers apply these ideas immediately. It also addresses common barriers such as skepticism, this is too simple to work, deeply ingrained pessimism or past trauma, reassuring the reader that positivity is not about denying the dark but learning how to navigate through it with light. Over time, these daily practices compound, gradually shifting your baseline mood and emotional responses. By consistently focusing on positive thoughts, beliefs, and intentions, you begin to physically alter your brain's wiring, reducing the activity in the amygdala, the fear center, and strengthening the prefrontal cortex, which governs decision-making, emotional regulation, and empathy. This creates a more balanced, empowered, and hopeful inner world that spills into your actions, relationships, and overall quality of life. Ultimately, Chapter 1 lays a powerful foundation for the rest of the book by showing that true change starts with mindset, and that positivity isn't just feel-good fluff, but a profound rewiring process that taps into the brain's natural capacity for growth and resilience. As the first step on your brain-hacking journey, Rewiring for Positivity gives you the tools to shift your focus, challenge your inner critic, and begin designing a life rooted in confidence, possibility, and emotional strength. By the end of the chapter, you're not just intellectually aware of the importance of positivity, you've begun the process of embodying it. Chapter 2, Boost Your Focus, dives deep into the cognitive science of attention and presents powerful, actionable strategies to help you reclaim your focus in a world that's constantly fighting for it. The chapter begins by recognizing that our ability to concentrate has never been more compromised. Thanks to digital distractions, multitasking, and overstimulation, our brains are often scattered, fatigued, and stuck in reactive mode. It explains that focus is not just a trait you're born with, but a skill you can strengthen like a mental muscle. Using neuroscience, the book explores how focus works within the brain, primarily involving the prefrontal cortex, which governs attention, planning, and impulse control, and how frequent distractions actually rewire your brain to crave novelty and reduce your ability to engage in deep, sustained work. To reverse this, the chapter outlines brain hacks designed to help you protect, train, and expand your attention span. The first key idea is single tasking, or the ability to do one thing at a time with full presence. Multitasking is exposed as a myth. When we switch between tasks, our brain suffers from attention residue, making us slower, less accurate, and more mentally drained. By committing to focus on one task for a defined period of time, you begin to build the neural strength for deeper concentration. The Pomodoro technique, working in focused 25-minute sprints followed by short breaks, is introduced as a way to manage energy and avoid burnout. You're also encouraged to use distraction audits to identify where your attention leaks. Notifications, open browser tabs, or even internal interruptions like racing thoughts or anxiety. The chapter recommends creating focus rituals to train your brain to enter a state of flow. This might include clearing your physical space, using noise-canceling headphones, setting a timer, and signaling to your brain that it's time to engage. Environment design is a recurring theme. If your space is chaotic, your mind will be too. Another key strategy is the use of dopamine management. Since the brain craves quick rewards, like checking messages or scrolling through social media, the chapter suggests making focused work more rewarding by tracking progress, celebrating small wins, and building momentum through habits. You learn how to prime your brain with intention. Starting each day or task with a clear purpose and desired outcome helps align your mental energy and filter out irrelevant stimuli. Mindfulness meditation is recommended as a daily habit to improve attention span, teaching your brain how to return to the present moment over and over again, which strengthens the neural circuits associated with concentration. For those who struggle with mental fatigue, the book emphasizes the importance of managing your cognitive load. That includes getting enough sleep, eating brain-friendly foods, staying hydrated, and avoiding decision fatigue by simplifying routines or batching similar tasks together. The chapter also introduces the concept of focus anchors. These are triggers or objects, like a specific playlist, essential oils, or even a particular chair, that signal your brain it's time to focus, creating a Pavlovian response that speeds up the transition into deep work mode. Another essential brain hack presented is learning how to handle internal distractions. The book teaches techniques like thought labeling, acknowledging a distracting thought without engaging it, and mental bookmarking, noting something to return to later so it doesn't pull you away from your task. You're encouraged to create a focus-friendly lifestyle, one that aligns your energy with your priorities, balances work and rest, and respects the natural rhythms of your brain. Chronobiology is briefly discussed, suggesting you align your most mentally demanding work with your brain's peak times, which for many is mid to late morning. The chapter wraps up by reinforcing the idea that building focus is not about being perfect, but about practicing presence over and over again. Like going to the gym, every moment of focus is a rep, and the more reps you put in, through mindful habits, reduced distractions, and intentional effort, the stronger your focus becomes. It challenges the reader to treat attention like the most valuable currency they have, because where your attention goes, your life flows. By the end of the chapter, you understand that focus is not about forcing yourself to work harder, but about creating the right mental and environmental conditions to work smarter. You walk away with a new perspective on your brain's capacity for attention, practical tools to reclaim control over it, and a deeper appreciation for the clarity, efficiency, and creative flow that focused living can bring. Chapter 3, Master Your Morning, emphasizes the transformative power of starting your day with intention, structure, and mental clarity, framing the morning not just as the beginning of your day, but as the foundation for your mindset, productivity, and emotional state for everything that follows. This chapter explores how the first 60 to 90 minutes of your morning can either set you up for success or sabotage your focus, energy, and mental resilience, depending on how you use them. Instead of diving headfirst into chaos, emails, social media, news, or urgent to-dos, the book encourages creating a simple, repeatable morning ritual designed to activate your brain's highest potential. Drawing on neuroscience and behavioral psychology, it explains how morning habits influence your cortisol levels, dopamine response, and prefrontal cortex activation, all of which play key roles in how alert, motivated, and emotionally stable you feel throughout the day. One of the central brain hacks in this chapter is starting with intention rather than reaction, which means avoiding digital distractions, negativity, or external noise for at least the first 30 minutes after waking. By doing so, you allow your mind to wake up naturally and set your own agenda before the world sets it for you. The book breaks down a framework called the Power Hour, where your morning is divided into small intentional blocks that include movement, mindfulness, mindset, and goal setting. Even 10 to 15 minutes in each area can compound into massive mental clarity and focus over time. For example, beginning your day with physical activity, whether it's stretching, yoga, or a brisk walk, activates the brain by increasing blood flow, releasing endorphins, and jump-starting the dopamine system, which is essential for motivation and drive. Following that with mindfulness or meditation, even for just 5 minutes, helps quiet the mental chatter and train your brain to be present, grounded, and emotionally balanced. This practice has been shown to reduce stress hormones, improve emotional regulation, and strengthen areas of the brain involved in attention and self-awareness. Next, the chapter introduces the concept of mindset priming, where you write down your top priorities for the day, repeat empowering affirmations, or reflect on your goals and values to align your subconscious mind with your conscious actions. This primes the reticular activating system, RAS, in your brain to notice and filter in what matters most, increasing your ability to stay focused and aligned. The book encourages readers to create a no chaos before clarity rule, meaning no checking your phone, social feeds, or work notifications until you've connected with yourself first. Digital inputs early in the morning spike cortisol and scatter your attention, putting you in a reactive rather than proactive state. Instead, replacing these habits with journaling, breathwork, silence, or inspirational reading rewires your brain for calmness, self-leadership, and clarity. The chapter also delves into circadian rhythm and the role of natural light in regulating your body clock. Getting sunlight exposure within the first hour of waking supports your brain's alertness signals and helps set your energy rhythm for the day. The book even covers hydration and nutrition hacks, like starting your morning with a glass of water, since your brain is mildly dehydrated after sleep, and fueling with foods rich in healthy fats and proteins to sustain energy and mental focus. Another powerful idea is the concept of early wins. By accomplishing even one small task early in the day, like making your bed, organizing your space, or completing a short workout, you build a sense of momentum and confidence that can carry into your work, relationships, and personal goals. These wins cue the brain's reward system, increasing dopamine and reinforcing positive behaviors. The chapter also speaks to the importance of customization. While some people thrive in silence and solitude, others may be energized by music, inspiring podcasts, or movement. The key is to design a morning that works for you, one that energizes, centers, and empowers you consistently. It's not about a rigid schedule or waking up at 5 a.m., unless that suits your rhythm, but rather about being intentional with the first part of your day. The chapter addresses common barriers too, such as time constraints, resistance to routine, or morning fatigue. It encourages starting small, choosing just one habit to anchor your morning, and gradually stacking new habits onto that. By using habit stacking techniques, e.g., after I brush my teeth, I'll take 3 deep breaths, or, after I drink water, I'll write down my top goal, you condition your brain through repetition and cue association, making the habits feel automatic over time. There's a reminder that it's not about perfection. Missing a day isn't failure, it's feedback. What matters most is consistency and returning to your routine with compassion and curiosity. Finally, the chapter ties everything together with the core message. Mastering your morning is about mastering your mind. It's about claiming control over your day before the outside world gets a chance to hijack it. A well-crafted morning ritual aligns your mind, body, and spirit, helping you show up for your day with intention, clarity, and energy. When you win the morning, you increase your odds of winning the rest of the day, not by grinding harder but by starting smarter. And when practiced consistently, these morning brain hacks rewire your neural pathways to support a lifestyle of resilience, purpose, and aligned action, ultimately changing the way you live, think, and lead. Chapter 4: Build Atomic Habits explores the incredible power of small, consistent actions to rewire the brain, shift identity, and ultimately transform your life through the science of habit formation. The chapter is heavily influenced by behavioral psychology and neuroscience, emphasizing that lasting change doesn't come from massive effort or motivation alone, but from building systems of behavior that are easy to repeat and gradually compound over time. The term atomic is used deliberately. It refers not only to the small size of the habits, but also to their explosive potential for creating long-term transformation. This chapter breaks down the habit loop: cue, craving, response, and reward, and explains how understanding this loop allows you to strategically design or break habits that shape your thoughts, decisions, energy, and outcomes. The brain loves efficiency, and habits are the brain's way of conserving energy by automating frequently repeated behaviors. When repeated often enough, a habit forms strong neural pathways, making the behavior more automatic and requiring less mental effort. The chapter explains that the key to building effective atomic habits lies in starting small, staying consistent, and aligning your habits with your identity. For example, instead of saying, "I want to read more," you would anchor your habit to your identity. "I am the kind of person who reads daily," and then start with something as small as reading 1 page a day. By doing this, you signal to your brain that you're becoming that kind of person, and each action becomes a vote for the identity you're building. Identity-based habits are especially powerful because they shift behavior from something you do occasionally to something you are at your core. The chapter goes further to explain how environment plays a critical role in habit formation. The easier a habit is to do, the more likely you are to repeat it. That means setting up your surroundings to make good habits obvious, attractive, and friction-free. For instance, placing your gym clothes where you can see them or prepping healthy snacks ahead of time reduces the decision fatigue and willpower required to act. At the same time, bad habits can be disrupted by increasing friction, like deleting a distracting app or moving junk food out of easy reach. The book also introduces the concept of habit stacking, where you tie a new habit to an existing one. After I brush my teeth, I'll meditate for 1 minute, to create seamless transitions and stronger neural associations. Repetition and timing are key. Habits become embedded through frequency, not duration, meaning that even brief actions done daily can lead to profound results over weeks and months. The chapter stresses the importance of tracking and celebrating small wins, using visual cues like habit trackers or calendars to keep momentum and dopamine flowing. Dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, plays a major role in reinforcing behavior, and celebrating each small success, like checking off a box or acknowledging your effort, helps to anchor the habit emotionally. Additionally, the chapter teaches how to apply the 4 laws of behavior change. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfy. These principles can be applied to both building good habits and breaking bad ones. For example, to make a habit obvious, you might use visual cues or set reminders. To make it attractive, pair the habit with something you enjoy, e.g., listening to a podcast while walking. To make it easy, reduce the number of steps. And to make it satisfying, give yourself an immediate reward or sense of progress. For breaking bad habits, you do the opposite. Make them invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. The book also addresses the all-too-common problem of losing motivation or giving up too early, explaining that motivation naturally fluctuates but habits grounded in systems don't rely on willpower, they run on structure. Consistency over perfection is the motto. Missing one day won't break the habit, but giving up entirely resets your progress. The chapter encourages the never miss twice mindset. If you slip once, get back on track the very next chance you get. It also delves into the power of keystone habits, those core routines that positively influence other areas of your life. For example, exercising regularly might improve sleep, reduce stress, and boost confidence, all of which feed into other productive habits. This ripple effect shows that some small changes can lead to exponential growth across your entire lifestyle. The chapter wraps up by showing that atomic habits aren't just about achieving goals, they're about designing a system for continuous improvement. Goals are outcomes, habits are processes. When you fall in love with the process, results take care of themselves. Instead of being overwhelmed by big transformations, you begin to trust that tiny shifts made daily, whether it's waking up 10 minutes earlier, drinking more water, writing 1 paragraph, or doing 5 push-ups, can reshape the architecture of your brain, reinforce empowering beliefs, and build the life you want from the inside out. Ultimately, Build Atomic Habits teaches that change doesn't require dramatic effort. It requires smart, sustainable design, backed by a deep understanding of how your brain learns, adapts, and grows through repetition, rewards, and identity alignment. With the right cues, the right mindset, and the willingness to start small, you can unlock the most powerful transformation engine available, your daily habits. Chapter 5, Calm the Chaos, delves into the critical brain hack of learning to regulate internal and external chaos to regain control of your emotions, thoughts, and life with clarity and calm, especially in a world that feels more fast-paced, uncertain, and overwhelming by the day. The chapter begins by identifying chaos as not just external noise, like traffic, deadlines, endless notifications, or the demands of others, but also as the internal turbulence of overthinking, anxiety, emotional reactivity, and a nervous system in overdrive. It explains how chronic stress and chaos dysregulate the brain, especially the amygdala, which triggers the fight-or-flight response, and impair the function of the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for logical thinking, emotional regulation, and decision-making. When chaos becomes constant, our minds become reactive instead of responsive, leading to burnout, poor choices, irritability, and emotional instability. The chapter highlights the fact that calming chaos is not about controlling everything around you, which is impossible, but about mastering your inner state so you can stay grounded and effective no matter what life throws at you. One of the key brain hacks presented is the concept of nervous system awareness, becoming aware of your internal cues, tight chest, racing heart, rapid breathing, that signal when you're entering stress mode, and using specific tools to shift from a reactive state to a calm and centered one. Breathing techniques, especially box breathing, inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, are presented as fast, effective ways to send safety signals to the brain and activate the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest mode. The chapter also dives into the science of emotional regulation, teaching that emotions are simply energy in motion, and learning how to sit with, name, and breathe through difficult emotions reduces their power over you. Instead of bottling up emotions or letting them explode, calming the chaos means learning to pause, observe, and respond with intention. This pause, even if it's just a few seconds, creates space between stimulus and response, a space where emotional intelligence lives. Mindfulness is introduced as another powerful tool, helping you become the observer of your thoughts instead of being swept up in them. Regular mindfulness practice has been shown to reduce anxiety, shrink the amygdala, and increase gray matter in areas of the brain responsible for compassion and calm focus. The book suggests simple daily mindfulness rituals, like a 3-minute breathing check-in, mindful walks, or a morning body scan, as realistic and powerful ways to train your brain for calm. The chapter also focuses on decluttering your physical environment as a way to reduce cognitive overload, since every piece of visual or physical clutter sends microstress signals to your brain. A messy space often mirrors a messy mind, so simplifying your surroundings, clearing your workspace, organizing your home, or having a digital detox can create mental spaciousness and increase your capacity for calm. The book addresses mental clutter as well, racing thoughts, unfinished tasks, looping worries, and suggests brain dumps, journaling, and thought downloads as ways to clear your mind and make space for clarity. Even a 5-minute journaling session can help your brain offload stress and reduce anxiety. In addition, it emphasizes the importance of setting boundaries as a form of chaos control. Learning to say no, protect your time, and disconnect from toxic people or overstimulating content creates room for peace and presence. Digital boundaries, such as limiting social media, turning off notifications, or having screen-free hours, are highlighted as game changers for calming the chaos of constant input. The book also stresses the importance of creating rhythm and routine, because predictability brings the brain a sense of safety. Establishing calming rituals like a morning routine, wind-down time before bed, or scheduled breaks throughout the day helps regulate your internal clock and soothe your nervous system. Movement, too, is presented as a chaos-calming tool. Exercise, even in small doses, helps flush out stress hormones, release endorphins, and reset your mental and emotional state. Whether it's yoga, walking, dancing, or stretching, physical movement is a scientifically proven way to bring the brain and body back into balance. The chapter doesn't ignore emotional chaos either. It teaches how to process big emotions without being consumed by them. Using self-compassion, validation, and the power of naming what you're feeling, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling scattered, helps calm the emotional brain and activates the language centers that bring logic back online. Another powerful brain hack is visualization. Closing your eyes and imagining a calm scene, like a forest, ocean, or quiet sanctuary, can trick your brain into believing you're in a safe, peaceful environment, reducing the stress response in real time. This mental imagery technique has been used in therapy, sports, and performance psychology to help the mind and body return to equilibrium. The chapter ends with the message that chaos is a part of life, but staying in chaos doesn't have to be. You can't always control the world around you, but you can learn to control how you respond to it. Calming the chaos isn't about escaping life's demands, but about becoming the calm within the storm, creating an inner anchor through breath, boundaries, mindset, and mindfulness. It's about choosing peace in the middle of pressure and training your brain to return to center, no matter how turbulent the moment. Ultimately, Calm the Chaos provides not only the why, but the how, giving you the tools to regulate your thoughts, emotions, and nervous system so you can move through life with more clarity, energy, and confidence. Chapter 6, Visualize Success, explores the powerful mental technique of visualization as a tool to rewire your brain, prime your body for action, and bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be by harnessing the brain's incredible ability to simulate experiences before they happen. Visualization, as described in this chapter, isn't just daydreaming or wishful thinking. It's an intentional, focused process that activates the same neural networks in your brain as real-life actions, essentially training your brain for success before you physically take the steps. The chapter begins by explaining the neuroscience behind visualization. When you vividly imagine a scenario, your brain lights up the same regions involved in actually performing the task, such as the motor cortex, limbic system, and prefrontal cortex, which means your brain doesn't always distinguish between imagination and reality. This gives you the power to practice success mentally, creating pathways that make the real-life execution smoother and more confident. Athletes, performers, and entrepreneurs have long used visualization to improve performance, reduce fear, and build confidence. And this chapter breaks down how anyone can use the same strategy to transform their mindset, productivity, and self-image. One of the core concepts is the reticular activating system, RAS, a filter in your brainstem that determines what information you focus on and notice in your environment. By visualizing specific goals or outcomes, you essentially give your RAS instructions to filter in opportunities, people, and ideas aligned with your desired vision. The more detailed and emotionally engaging the visualization, the more powerful the signal to your subconscious mind. The book emphasizes that visualization works best when it involves all five senses: sight, sound, smell, touch, and emotion, so the imagined scene becomes as vivid and real as possible. For example, if you're visualizing giving a confident presentation, you might imagine the feel of the clicker in your hand, the sound of your voice projecting clearly, the nods and smiles from the audience, and the surge of pride you feel after finishing strong. These rich details don't just create motivation, they train your brain and body to embody the identity of someone who is already successful. The chapter explains that visualization is most effective when paired with action and consistency. It's not enough to imagine something once. You need to make it a daily mental habit, reinforcing your goals and programming your subconscious to work toward them. The chapter recommends a 5 to 10-minute daily visualization ritual, ideally in the morning or before bed, when the brain is in a relaxed, receptive alpha state. This practice creates a feedback loop. The more you visualize success, the more confident and aligned you feel. The more aligned you feel, the more action you take. The more action you take, the more progress you see, reinforcing the original vision. The chapter also introduces the as-if principle, where you begin to act, think, and carry yourself as if your goals are already achieved. This is not about faking it, but about energetically aligning your behavior with your desired outcome, because your brain is more likely to create what it already believes is true. Visualization also helps combat fear, anxiety, and imposter syndrome by mentally rehearsing successful outcomes in situations that typically trigger self-doubt. For example, if you're nervous about an interview or confrontation, visualizing yourself staying calm, speaking clearly, and leaving the situation proud allows your brain to create a memory of success before it happens, making the real event feel familiar, manageable, and less threatening. The chapter explains how visualization enhances neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and grow by forming new connections, especially when paired with positive emotions. That's why visualizing success while feeling gratitude, excitement, or pride dramatically amplifies the effect. It links the imagined outcome to pleasurable neurochemicals like dopamine and serotonin, further reinforcing the behavior. It also suggests combining visualization with affirmations to strengthen belief and identity. For instance, seeing yourself crossing a finish line while repeating, "I finish what I start," or imagining a thriving business while affirming, "I'm capable of creating massive value." The book offers practical visualization exercises tailored to different goals, whether it's career success, health transformation, relationship confidence, or personal growth. One powerful technique is the future self-visualization, where you close your eyes and mentally meet the version of you who already lives the life you desire. You explore their habits, thoughts, environment, relationships, and energy, using that image as a blueprint for the actions you take today. The chapter also introduces the mental movie method, where you create a mental video of your ideal day or goal achievement, replaying it daily to embed it deeper into your subconscious. Importantly, the book cautions against visualizing only the end goal without the journey. Studies show that visualizing the process, the effort, persistence, and daily habits, alongside the outcome is more effective than fantasizing about success alone. For example, if your goal is to write a book, visualizing yourself researching, writing consistently, and overcoming resistance is more powerful than only imagining a published copy in your hands. This process-based visualization helps your brain anticipate obstacles and stay motivated through challenges. The chapter concludes by emphasizing that visualization is a tool of mental mastery. It helps you bridge the gap between your current self and your future self by engaging the imagination not as escape, but as a creative engine for transformation. When practiced consistently, visualization becomes a way to rehearse confidence, rewire limiting beliefs, and align your thoughts, energy, and behavior with the outcomes you desire. It helps you walk into situations already feeling capable and clear because you've mentally been there before. Ultimately, visualized success shows that what the mind can vividly imagine and emotionally believe, it can begin to create in reality, and that the journey to external achievement begins with seeing it clearly within first. Chapter 7, Sleep Smarter, delves into one of the most overlooked but essential brain hacks for mental clarity, emotional stability, productivity, and overall well-being: optimizing your sleep. The chapter begins by dispelling the myth that successful, high-performing individuals thrive on minimal rest, instead presenting scientific evidence that deep, consistent sleep is not a luxury but a biological necessity for peak brain function. Sleep is when the brain resets, repairs, reorganizes, and consolidates memories, making it essential for learning, creativity, decision-making, and emotional regulation. It explains how poor sleep impairs the prefrontal cortex, responsible for focus, reasoning, and self-control, while overactivating the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, which increases reactivity, anxiety, and irritability. Chronic sleep deprivation also disrupts the balance of key neurotransmitters and hormones like serotonin, dopamine, cortisol, and melatonin, leading to increased cravings, weight gain, lowered immunity, and even symptoms of depression or burnout. The chapter emphasizes that sleeping smarter is not about sleeping longer, but about improving sleep quality and aligning your lifestyle with your body's natural circadian rhythms, the internal 24-hour clock that governs sleep-wake cycles. One of the first strategies introduced is creating a consistent sleep schedule, going to bed and waking up at the same time daily, even on weekends, which stabilizes your circadian rhythm and teaches your body when to release melatonin and other sleep-related hormones. The book also addresses light exposure as a major factor. Natural sunlight in the morning helps anchor your body clock and boosts serotonin, while excessive exposure to artificial blue light at night from phones, tablets, and screens suppresses melatonin and confuses your brain into thinking it's still daytime. To combat this, the book recommends morning sunlight walks, blue light blockers in the evening, and turning off screens at least 60 to 90 minutes before bed. Another major hack presented is creating a sleep sanctuary, a bedroom environment that signals rest and recovery to the brain. This includes a cool temperature, ideally between 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit or 16 to 19 degrees Celsius, complete darkness using blackout curtains or sleep masks, minimal noise or white noise for soothing effect, and a clutter-free space to reduce mental stimulation. The chapter explains how your environment sends constant signals to your brain, and a chaotic or overstimulating bedroom can keep your brain in alert mode, making it harder to relax into deep sleep. The book also advocates for a wind-down ritual, a calming series of actions in the last hour before sleep that tell your nervous system it's time to power down. This might include light stretching, journaling, meditation, reading a physical book, dimming lights, or sipping a warm caffeine-free tea. These cues, when done consistently, train your brain to associate them with sleep, making it easier to drift off naturally. The chapter also explores the role of nutrition and timing. Eating heavy meals, drinking caffeine late in the day, or consuming alcohol before bed can all disrupt sleep cycles, even if they don't prevent you from falling asleep. Alcohol, for example, might make you drowsy but interferes with REM and deep sleep, leading to fragmented and low-quality rest. Instead, the book encourages eating your last meal at least 2 to 3 hours before bed and avoiding stimulants like coffee after 2 p.m. Movement is another surprising key. Regular physical activity, especially earlier in the day, promotes better sleep, but intense workouts too late at night may overstimulate the nervous system. The chapter introduces sleep cycles, about 90-minute loops that include light sleep, deep sleep, and REM, and suggests aligning your wake-up time at the end of a cycle rather than in the middle to feel more refreshed. Sleep tracking apps and wearable devices can help identify your patterns and fine-tune your schedule. The book also addresses common sleep disruptors like racing thoughts and anxiety by offering cognitive techniques such as the brain dump, writing down all your worries or to-dos before bed to clear mental clutter, gratitude journaling, or using calming affirmations and breathing exercises to shift the brain into a relaxed alpha or theta state. Another powerful tool is the 4-7-8 breathing method. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, exhale for 8, which calms the nervous system and prepares your body for rest. For those who struggle with waking up at night, the book encourages gentle resets. Get out of bed, read something boring, or stretch instead of tossing and turning. This avoids associating your bed with stress or insomnia. The chapter also reminds readers that sleep is not passive. It's a highly active, restorative process during which your brain performs critical maintenance. For example, the glymphatic system, the brain's waste removal network, is 10 times more active during deep sleep, clearing toxins and preventing neurodegenerative issues. Lack of quality sleep has been linked not only to impaired focus and mood but also to long-term issues like dementia, heart disease, and weakened immunity. The chapter reframes sleep as a productivity and performance enhancer, not a time waster. When you sleep smarter, your energy, clarity, and mood are better, allowing you to do more in less time with fewer errors. Finally, the chapter reinforces the idea that sleeping smarter is an act of self-respect and self-leadership. It's about creating a foundation for everything else in your life, from emotional balance to sharp thinking, effective habits, physical health, and even stronger relationships. Instead of glorifying hustle and burnout, Sleep Smarter encourages you to value rest as an essential pillar of personal transformation. When you sleep well, your brain performs better, your body repairs more efficiently, and your life gets exponentially easier to manage. Sleep becomes the quiet superpower behind every other success hack in the book, and prioritizing it is a non-negotiable step toward living a healthier, happier, and more empowered life. Chapter 8, Supercharge Learning, dives deep into how we can dramatically improve our ability to absorb, retain, and apply new information by aligning with how the brain naturally learns best, unlocking untapped mental potential through science-backed strategies that make learning faster, deeper, and more enjoyable. The chapter begins by dismantling outdated beliefs about learning being a rigid, age-limited process, emphasizing that the brain is plastic, constantly capable of growth, change, and new wiring through a process known as neuroplasticity. This means that no matter your age or background, you can improve how you learn by learning how to learn. The chapter starts by addressing the brain's key learning mechanism: repetition with emotional and sensory engagement. It explains that the more senses involved, sight, sound, touch, etc., and the more emotionally charged or meaningful the information is, the stronger and longer-lasting the neural imprint becomes. One of the first hacks it introduces is active learning over passive consumption, highlighting that rereading or passively listening is far less effective than actually engaging with material through summarizing, teaching it to others, using it in practice, or testing yourself. Teaching, in particular, is framed as the ultimate learning hack because it forces you to clarify, simplify, and encode knowledge deeply. The chapter also encourages the use of spaced repetition, a technique where you review material at strategic intervals to strengthen memory and prevent forgetting, which aligns with the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. Tools like flashcards, especially digital ones like Anki, short daily reviews, or quick end-of-day recaps are suggested as simple ways to keep key concepts fresh. The book then explores the power of visualization and mental mapping in learning, encouraging techniques like mind mapping, drawing, or associating concepts with vivid images to improve recall. Your brain remembers images far better than abstract words, and when you link ideas to creative visuals or metaphors, retention skyrockets. The chapter further introduces chunking, breaking down complex information into small, manageable pieces, which allows the brain to handle more data by grouping it meaningfully, like remembering a phone number as 3 chunks instead of 10 individual digits. Another major strategy is multisensory learning, where reading is combined with writing, speaking, and movement to reinforce neural pathways. The more you engage your body while learning, walking while listening to a podcast, using gestures while speaking, or writing by hand, the deeper the encoding becomes. The chapter also emphasizes the importance of emotion and curiosity in fueling effective learning. When you're excited or curious about a topic, dopamine levels rise, which enhances memory, motivation, and focus. So, instead of forcing yourself to learn dry material, the book recommends gamifying the process, turning learning into challenges, quizzes, or creative projects to keep your brain emotionally engaged. It also discusses state-dependent learning, showing how your mental and emotional state while learning affects how well you retain and recall information. Learning while tired, distracted, or anxious leads to poor results, while learning in a relaxed, focused, and optimistic state, what the book calls high brain energy zones, maximizes performance. To enter that state, it suggests brief pre-study rituals like deep breathing, movement, or visualizing success. Another powerful method the chapter presents is interleaved learning, mixing different but related topics or skills during study sessions, rather than focusing on one subject for a long time. This forces the brain to switch contexts and think harder, leading to more durable learning. Similarly, retrieval practice, actively recalling information from memory without looking at notes, strengthens retention far more than passive review. Instead of rereading, try to explain concepts from memory, do self-quizzes, or use flashcard apps. The chapter also addresses the brain's need for rest to consolidate learning. Sleep is essential for converting short-term memory into long-term memory, especially during deep sleep and REM stages when the brain replays and organizes the day's learning. Power naps and breaks during study sessions, like the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, are also recommended to prevent mental fatigue and allow information to settle. Nutrition and hydration are also covered, highlighting that the brain needs glucose, omega-3s, water, and micronutrients to function at its best. Foods like blueberries, nuts, green tea, and fatty fish are called out as learning fuels, while dehydration, processed food, and sugar crashes are shown to impair focus and retention. The chapter makes a strong case for movement and exercise as learning amplifiers, showing how physical activity boosts BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein that enhances memory and learning by strengthening existing neurons and promoting the growth of new ones. Even 20 minutes of walking before study can improve comprehension and creativity. The chapter then touches on the importance of a growth mindset, quoting Carol Dweck's research to show how believing you can improve your intelligence directly enhances your ability to learn. If you view mistakes as feedback rather than failure, your brain becomes more open to new challenges and resilient in the face of difficulty. The book encourages tracking learning progress, celebrating small wins, and reflecting often to build momentum and reinforce self-belief. Lastly, the chapter reinforces the idea that learning is not about cramming or cranking through hours of work. It's about working with your brain, not against it. By combining emotion, repetition, movement, visualization, testing, and curiosity, you can turn learning into a powerful, enjoyable part of daily life. Whether you're mastering a new language, upskilling for your career, or simply trying to remember what you read in a book, these brain-based techniques help you absorb faster, retain longer, and apply smarter. Ultimately, supercharged learning reframes the act of learning from a chore into a superpower, showing that the more we understand how the brain learns, the more we can shape our future with purpose, confidence, and mastery. Chapter 9, Upgrade Your Self-Talk, explores one of the most profound and transformative brain hacks available to anyone: the language we use when we talk to ourselves. It begins with the powerful insight that your internal dialogue shapes your reality, self-image, behavior, and even your brain's wiring, because the mind is always listening, even when it's just you speaking silently in your head. The chapter explains that your self-talk forms the emotional and cognitive foundation of your beliefs, and those beliefs directly influence how you perceive challenges, make decisions, regulate emotions, and interpret success or failure. Negative self-talk such as, "I'm not good enough," "I always mess things up," or "I'll never change," creates a loop of self-doubt and defeat, triggering stress responses in the brain, particularly in the amygdala and hypothalamus, which reinforces fear, imposter syndrome, and procrastination. This internal negativity activates the same fight-or-flight pathways as external threats, flooding your system with cortisol and narrowing your ability to think creatively or problem-solve. On the flip side, positive, empowering self-talk not only lifts your mood but actually activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for executive function, clarity, and rational decision-making. The chapter stresses that upgrading your self-talk isn't about ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect. It's about shifting the tone and intention of your internal dialogue from harsh criticism to constructive encouragement. You become your own inner coach instead of your worst critic. One key idea is that the words you choose become self-fulfilling prophecies. If you tell yourself, "I'm terrible at public speaking," your brain will filter experiences through that lens and reinforce the identity. But if you say, "I'm learning to express myself with confidence," you open space for growth. The chapter teaches that language literally sculpts your identity and that changing just a few key phrases in your daily thoughts can reprogram your mindset. It introduces the technique of thought awareness, where you begin to observe your inner monologue like a curious third party. By identifying common negative scripts, such as perfectionism, catastrophizing, or comparison, you create distance from them and reduce their power. The book encourages journaling or saying these thoughts aloud to better examine their logic and emotional tone. Once you become aware of unhelpful thought patterns, the next step is to consciously reframe them. For example, replacing "I failed" with "I'm learning," or "This is too hard" with "This is a chance to grow." These subtle shifts create a massive impact over time, because your brain starts associating effort and challenge with opportunity rather than threat. The chapter also introduces the idea of using the third person in self-talk, a technique supported by neuroscience. Referring to yourself by name, e.g., "You've got this, Sarah," creates emotional distance from stress and helps you coach yourself more objectively, like a supportive mentor would. This simple trick reduces emotional overwhelm and increases resilience in pressure situations. Another powerful tool is affirmations, which, when used correctly, can rewire subconscious beliefs. The chapter explains that affirmations must feel believable and aligned with your current identity to work. So rather than repeating, "I'm a millionaire," when you're broke and anxious, you might say, "I'm developing the mindset and habits that lead to wealth." It's about affirming the process, not just the outcome. Embedding affirmations with emotion and visualization strengthens their neural impact, making them more than just empty words. The chapter also connects self-talk to body language, showing that posture, breath, and tone influence the thoughts you think. Slouching or shallow breathing often accompanies negative self-talk, while standing tall and breathing deeply supports confidence-boosting dialogue. The mind-body connection is cyclical. change one and the other often follows. Another critical part of upgrading self-talk is compassion. Most people speak to themselves in a tone they'd never use with a friend. The chapter challenges you to interrupt self-shaming with compassion, asking, "What would I say to someone I love in this situation?" This reframes mistakes and setbacks not as evidence of unworthiness, but as natural, even necessary, parts of the learning journey. The book also introduces power questions as a self-talk upgrade tool. Questions like, "What's one small win I can create today?" Or "What is this challenge teaching me?" shift your mental focus from victimhood to agency. Since your brain is wired to answer questions automatically, these prompts guide it to search for solutions, possibilities, and strength, rather than looping in negativity. The chapter emphasizes the power of repetition in building new mental scripts. Just like muscles grow with repeated reps, your brain strengthens the neural pathways of new thought patterns through practice. Every time you repeat a supportive phrase, reframe a thought, or interrupt negative chatter, you're literally rewiring your brain to respond more constructively in the future. The book encourages creating a list of personal power phrases that reflect your core values and goals, like "I do hard things," "I am enough," or "progress over perfection," and repeating them daily, especially during moments of stress or doubt. Another concept discussed is mental rehearsal, where you mentally walk through future situations while using upgraded self-talk to stay calm, focused, and positive. This technique not only builds confidence but also conditions your nervous system to handle challenges with more grace. Lastly, the chapter makes it clear that upgrading your self-talk is not a one-time fix but a lifelong mental hygiene practice. Your brain is always talking. It's up to you to decide whether the voice in your head is helping or hurting. Just like brushing your teeth or exercising, maintaining clean, empowering inner dialogue is essential for emotional resilience, goal achievement, and overall well-being. The more you practice kind, motivating, and focused self-talk, the more it becomes your default operating system, especially when life gets difficult. By choosing your words with intention, both spoken and unspoken, you create a mental environment where confidence, clarity, and courage can thrive. In essence, upgrade your self-talk shows that when you change the conversation in your mind, you change the direction of your life, and that one of the most powerful voices you'll ever hear is the one inside your head. Chapter 10, Tap into Flow State, unlocks one of the most coveted mental states for peak performance, creativity, and personal fulfillment. The flow state, a condition of complete immersion where time fades, self-doubt dissolves, and productivity skyrockets. This chapter explores how to intentionally trigger and sustain flow in everyday life, whether you're working, creating, learning, or pursuing a passion. Flow, originally coined by psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, is described as the sweet spot where challenge meets skill, where you're stretched just enough to stay engaged, but not so much that you feel overwhelmed. In this state, the brain floods with neurochemicals like dopamine, norepinephrine, endorphins, and anandamide, which heighten focus, speed up processing, and create a euphoric sense of effortless mastery. The chapter explains that flow isn't accidental or mystical. It's trainable and replicable through specific mental and environmental conditions. It starts with clear goals, knowing exactly what you're working toward in a given moment, which helps focus the mind and reduce internal distractions. Flow thrives in clarity, and ambiguity kills it, so breaking big tasks into smaller, actionable steps is essential. The book then emphasizes the importance of eliminating distractions. Smartphones, notifications, multitasking, and background noise are all flow killers. To enter flow, your attention must be fully directed to one task, one intention. The chapter suggests scheduling deep work blocks of at least 90 minutes where you work in a distraction-free zone with no interruptions. This gives your brain the space to enter flow's rhythm. The challenge-skill balance is another pillar. If a task is too easy, you get bored, too hard, and you get anxious. Flow happens right in the middle, when you're leaning just outside your comfort zone, pushing your limits in a way that feels exciting, not paralyzing. To find this edge, the book recommends regular skill building and adjusting task difficulty as you grow. The chapter dives into autotelic motivation, doing the task for the joy of doing it, not just the result. Flow is more likely when you're internally motivated, so the book encourages connecting tasks to personal values or reframing them as creative challenges. Another major aspect is complete presence, which the chapter describes as mental stillness in motion. This is cultivated by training attention, often through mindfulness practices or breathing techniques that calm the inner chatter. Techniques like box breathing or single-tasking rituals can help anchor your focus and shift your nervous system into a parasympathetic state, where flow becomes accessible. The book also stresses priming rituals, which are small habits that signal to your brain it's time to enter flow. This could be something as simple as putting on headphones, lighting a candle, doing a stretch routine, or writing down an intention. Repetition conditions your brain to associate those actions with deep focus. The chapter explores how time distortion is a core indicator of flow. When you're in it, hours can feel like minutes because you're fully aligned with the task, not preoccupied with results or external pressure. This timeless zone is where some of your best ideas and breakthroughs emerge because you're not overthinking, you're being, not trying. The chapter also explains that feedback loops help maintain flow. Whether it's a progress bar, visual cues, or real-time feedback, like seeing paint take shape on a canvas or hearing a musical note, immediate responses help your brain adjust and refine its actions on the fly, reinforcing motivation and engagement. Flow is not limited to creatives or athletes. It's accessible in conversations, studying, coding, cooking, or exercising as long as you're present, challenged, and emotionally connected. The book also breaks down the neuroscience of flow, showing how it's a temporary hypofrontality state, where the prefrontal cortex, which governs self-criticism, doubt, and time awareness, quiets down, allowing intuition, spontaneity, and instinct to take over. This is why people often report feeling limitless or in the zone, because the part of the brain that normally second-guesses is offline, giving space to natural intelligence and fluid thinking. The chapter suggests flow is not about pushing harder but surrendering more deeply, letting go of control, perfectionism, and outcome obsession. It teaches that getting into flow more often is not about force, but alignment, aligning your focus, purpose, and energy in one clear direction. It discusses the afterglow effect, the lasting sense of joy, clarity, and satisfaction that comes from a deep flow session, which boosts confidence, reduces anxiety, and often accelerates learning and insight. It also emphasizes the importance of recovery, because flow is an intense cognitive and neurochemical state. It's essential to rest and refuel afterward, whether through sleep, light activity, or even daydreaming. Without recovery, flow becomes harder to access and sustain. The chapter also explores group flow, where teams synchronize mentally and emotionally, often achieving extraordinary collaboration and innovation. This happens when there's shared focus, mutual trust, clear roles, and emotional safety, conditions that can be fostered in work environments, creative teams, or even in personal relationships. Flow becomes not just an individual experience but a collective accelerator of progress. Finally, the chapter encourages readers to design a flow-friendly life by structuring daily routines, goals, and environments to support deep focus, intrinsic motivation, and regular immersion. Instead of waiting for flow to happen by chance, you create it intentionally, turning your work and life into a playground of engagement and excellence. The more often you enter flow, the more fulfilled, productive, and alive you feel. It becomes a virtuous cycle. Flow deepens your skills, which unlocks deeper flow, which enhances purpose and joy. Ultimately, Tap into Flow State teaches that flow isn't just a hack for getting things done, it's a gateway to peak living where you're not just surviving the day but fully alive in it. Chapter 11, Connect for Impact, emphasizes that one of the most transformative brain hacks isn't a solo act of willpower or mindset shift, but the power of human connection, and how intentionally nurturing meaningful relationships can elevate every area of your life, from mental health to success, to overall happiness and even brain performance. This chapter explores the neuroscience and psychology behind why relationships matter and how strategically improving the quality of your connections can create ripple effects far beyond the social realm. At the core is the truth that our brains are wired for connection. Literally. Humans are social creatures, and our survival and evolution have depended on forming bonds, collaborating, and belonging to groups. Social interaction activates areas of the brain like the prefrontal cortex, amygdala, and mirror neuron system, all of which influence empathy, trust, emotional regulation, and decision-making. When we feel genuinely connected to others, our brains release oxytocin, the bonding hormone, dopamine, and serotonin, creating feelings of safety, happiness, and motivation. In contrast, loneliness or toxic interactions increase cortisol levels, impair immune function, and even reduce cognitive performance. The chapter makes it clear, connection isn't just emotionally fulfilling, it's biologically essential. But in the modern digital age where surface-level interaction often replaces deep conversation, many people feel disconnected, isolated, or unsupported, even when surrounded by others. That's why this chapter goes beyond just encouraging being social. It dives into how to connect with others intentionally, meaningfully, and with purpose to maximize both personal fulfillment and collective impact. One of the first strategies it offers is practicing presence. being fully engaged and undistracted in conversations. This means putting away your phone, making eye contact, listening actively, and genuinely valuing what the other person is saying. Presence is rare in a world of divided attention, and simply giving it can strengthen bonds dramatically. The book then explores the power of empathetic listening, where instead of preparing your response while someone speaks, you listen to understand, not just their words but their emotions, their story, and their needs. This kind of listening creates psychological safety, which is essential for trust. Another major hack discussed is vulnerability as strength. The chapter explains that when you have the courage to be real, share your fears, admit mistakes, ask for help, you open the door for others to do the same. Vulnerability deepens connection because it removes the mask of perfection and invites authenticity. In relationships, impact doesn't come from being impressive, it comes from being human. The book also encourages the practice of intentional appreciation, suggesting that we often underestimate the power of a sincere compliment, a thank you note, or acknowledging someone's effort. Expressing gratitude in relationships not only lifts the receiver but rewires your own brain toward positivity, making you more attuned to others' strengths. It also outlines the idea of connection audits, where you reflect on your current social circle and evaluate which relationships energize, inspire, and support you, and which ones drain, manipulate, or discourage. This isn't about judging people, but about creating boundaries and choosing to invest your energy in high-quality, reciprocal connections. One powerful section of the chapter talks about networking with authenticity, flipping the idea of networking from a transactional game to a value-driven practice rooted in curiosity, generosity, and shared purpose. When you connect from a place of, how can I help? Rather than what can I get? You create relationships that endure, open doors, and lead to unexpected opportunities. The chapter also discusses the role of mentorship and peer elevation, seeking guidance from those ahead of you and lifting up those beside and behind you. The more you invest in mutual growth, the more connected and empowered everyone becomes. The book encourages forming growth circles, masterminds, or accountability partners, not only to share knowledge but to build emotional resilience and collaborative success. Social support, it emphasizes, is one of the greatest predictors of long-term goal achievement. Another fascinating part of the chapter looks at mirror neurons and how we unconsciously adopt the emotions, language, and energy of those around us. That's why being in the company of positive, purposeful people can elevate your mindset, while toxic environments pull you into negativity. The chapter suggests, surround yourself with people who reflect your future, not your past. You become the average of the people you spend the most time with, so choose wisely. Additionally, the chapter breaks down how high-impact connection isn't limited to close friendships. Even micro-interactions, like greeting a stranger warmly, offering help, or smiling genuinely, can shift your own mood and create small waves of kindness. These brief connections spark oxytocin in both people, reminding the brain that the world is safe, warm, and connected. The chapter also highlights the importance of emotional intelligence (EQ) as a key to creating lasting impact through connection. EQ involves self-awareness, empathy, social skills, and emotional regulation, all of which can be cultivated through practice, feedback, and reflection. High EQ not only enhances relationships but improves leadership, teamwork, and conflict resolution. A section is dedicated to repair and reconnection, encouraging readers not to let pride, assumptions, or miscommunication create long-term rifts. The brain, the book says, thrives on resolution, so leaning into hard conversations with empathy and humility can often deepen a bond rather than break it. One of the most powerful ideas in this chapter is that your presence can be medicine. Simply by showing up with love, listening with intention, or offering your calm, you can change someone's internal state and help regulate their nervous system. Humans co-regulate emotionally, your peace can create peace in others. And in a world that often feels divided, the impact of that is immeasurable. Ultimately, Connect for Impact teaches that true success is rarely achieved in isolation. Whether your goal is personal growth, career advancement, or emotional well-being, the quality of your relationships is one of the strongest levers you can pull. Connection is not a luxury or a soft skill, it's a brain-based, life-changing power move. When you surround yourself with people who challenge and uplift you, when you show up with compassion and presence, and when you build relationships rooted in service and authenticity, you don't just feel better, you become better. This chapter is a call to nurture your network not just for what you can gain, but for the transformation that happens when humans truly see, support, and grow with one another. Chapter 12, Make It Stick, serves as the culmination of the book's teachings, offering a comprehensive strategy for making the brain hacks from earlier chapters a permanent part of your life. This chapter acknowledges that while learning and growth are essential, the true challenge lies in sustaining change. It introduces the concept of neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life, and emphasizes that to create lasting transformation, you need to intentionally solidify the habits, thought patterns, and practices you've learned. Making positive change stick is not an act of sheer willpower or sudden shifts, but a process of creating a supportive environment, using the right strategies, and setting yourself up for success over the long term. The first major focus of the chapter is consistency. One of the keys to lasting change is doing something regularly, even if it's small. The chapter explains that when you repeat an action over time, the neural pathways in your brain become stronger, making the behavior feel more automatic and effortless. It's like developing muscle memory. The more you practice something, the less energy it takes to do it. For example, committing to a 5-minute meditation daily can eventually train your brain to reach calm and focus in a fraction of the time it originally took. The book emphasizes that gradual, incremental changes are the most effective. It suggests focusing on one change at a time rather than overwhelming yourself with multiple shifts all at once. This creates a sense of accomplishment and reduces the likelihood of burnout. Over time, as each small habit builds upon the other, the cumulative impact becomes profound, transforming your brain and behavior. Another key point is the idea of habit stacking, which is the practice of linking a new behavior to an existing habit. The chapter outlines how people often fail to maintain new habits because they don't integrate them into their existing routines. For instance, if you want to start practicing gratitude, you could do so every morning right after brushing your teeth. This way, brushing your teeth acts as a trigger for the new habit. By pairing new actions with established ones, you leverage the brain's natural tendency to follow routine, making the new habit feel easier and more automatic. The chapter also highlights the importance of environmental design, creating an environment that supports your new habits. It underscores that willpower is limited and often fails when external temptations or distractions are too powerful. For example, if you're trying to eat healthier, keeping unhealthy snacks out of the house makes it easier to stick to your goals. Or if you're aiming to increase your productivity, organizing your workspace so that it's conducive to focus, free from distractions, becomes an essential part of making your progress sustainable. The book discusses the role of identity in making habits stick. The more you connect a new habit to your sense of self, the more likely it is to become ingrained in your life. If you think of yourself as a runner, then going for a jog doesn't feel like an effort, it's part of who you are. Therefore, the chapter encourages reframing how you think about yourself in relation to the behaviors you want to maintain. By claiming a new identity, for example, I am a healthy eater, or I am a focused person, you strengthen your commitment to the actions that reinforce that identity. The chapter also explores the idea of celebrating progress, which plays a crucial role in reinforcing the brain's connection to new behaviors. Positive reinforcement in the form of rewards, celebrations, or acknowledging even small wins sends signals to your brain that the behavior is worthwhile, increasing the likelihood of it sticking. Acknowledging progress helps combat the inevitable moments of doubt and frustration that arise during the process of change. The chapter highlights how visualization can be an important tool in making habits stick. By vividly imagining the process of performing your new habit and the positive emotions it will bring, you mentally rehearse the action, making it easier to follow through in reality. Visualization strengthens the neural connections related to the behavior, aligning your mind with your goals. Another aspect discussed in the chapter is the role of accountability. When we share our goals with others, it significantly increases the chances of success because it taps into our social instinct to avoid letting others down. Whether it's a friend, family member, or an accountability partner, the support and gentle pressure of knowing someone else is tracking your progress can help reinforce your commitment. The chapter also addresses the importance of tracking progress, whether through journaling, apps, or simple checklists. Regularly seeing how far you've come motivates you to continue, and it gives you a clear picture of your growth. The chapter also covers how to deal with relapses, because setbacks are a natural part of any journey. It reframes failure not as a signal to quit but as a learning opportunity. It encourages embracing the idea of self-compassion. Instead of criticizing yourself when you fall short, treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer a friend. This helps reduce the shame and guilt that can derail progress, allowing you to get back on track more quickly. The chapter emphasizes that resilience is an essential part of making change stick. It's not about being perfect but about being persistent and adaptable. Developing resilience means understanding that mistakes and slip-ups are normal, and using those moments as fuel to push forward rather than as reasons to give up. Lastly, the book talks about the importance of patience. The process of making change stick is not instantaneous. It takes time for new neural pathways to form and for new habits to feel automatic. The chapter encourages readers to trust the process, even when results don't appear immediately, and to remember that consistency over time is what leads to lasting change. By using these strategies, gradual progress, habit stacking, identity shifts, environmental design, celebrating progress, and building resilience, you can ensure that the positive changes you've made become ingrained in your life. Ultimately, Make It Stick teaches that the key to lasting transformation is not about dramatic overhauls but about creating a lifestyle of continuous, small, consistent actions that are supported by the right mindset, habits, and strategies. It's about making growth a permanent part of your life so that these brain hacks aren't just tools you use temporarily, but sustainable changes that last for the long haul. The chapter concludes by reiterating that your brain is your most powerful ally in creating the life you want, but to harness that power, you need to make the habits of success stick for good. With consistency, the right environment, and a focus on long-term growth, you can change your brain and your life for the better. Conclusion. The conclusion of 12 Brain Hacks to Change Your Life reinforces the central idea that the brain is not a fixed organ, but a dynamic, adaptable system that can be reprogrammed with intentionality, focus, and consistent effort. It emphasizes that the 12 brain hacks presented throughout the book are not just isolated tips, but interconnected strategies that work together to create lasting positive change in our lives. The conclusion revisits the idea of neuroplasticity, reminding readers that their brains have the capacity to grow, adapt, and form new neural connections throughout their lifetime. This is a hopeful and empowering message because it means that no matter where someone starts, whether in terms of their habits, mindset, or challenges, they have the potential to create the life they want by tapping into the brain's natural ability to evolve. The chapter reassures readers that it is not about perfection or instant transformation, but about making small, sustainable changes that accumulate over time to produce extraordinary results. It encourages individuals to take the lessons from the book and apply them with patience, persistence, and consistency, because lasting change is not an overnight phenomenon but a journey that unfolds gradually. One of the major takeaways from the conclusion is the power of habit formation in the process of personal transformation. The brain operates on habits, and changing your life starts by changing your habits. Whether it's by rewiring your brain for positivity, boosting your focus, mastering your mornings, or calming the chaos in your mind. The conclusion reminds readers that these habits, once formed, become automatic, allowing for greater freedom and efficiency in life. However, the brain also needs time and nurturing to cement these new habits into long-term behavior, and this is where repetition, environmental design, and emotional reinforcement come into play. The conclusion stresses that change is not just about implementing brain hacks as one-time solutions, but about developing a new way of being. This way of being is rooted in a mindset of growth and self-awareness, constantly striving for improvement while embracing setbacks and challenges as part of the process. It talks about how the concept of making it stick is essential to making real progress, and how the ability to stick with changes requires a deep connection to one's goals, identity, and intrinsic motivation. The conclusion reinforces the idea of self-compassion and how critical it is to remain kind to oneself during the ups and downs of transformation. It acknowledges that setbacks are inevitable, but that they should not deter progress. Instead, setbacks are seen as opportunities for growth, as moments where resilience and perseverance are strengthened. The chapter further touches on the importance of accountability and community in the process of change, underscoring how surrounding oneself with like-minded individuals can provide support, encouragement, and a sense of belonging that is vital for success. The book closes with a final call to action, to embrace the power of the brain and recognize that each person has the ability to unlock their full potential. It urges readers to take the tools and techniques provided in the book and integrate them into their daily lives, not just as isolated strategies, but as part of a larger commitment to self-improvement. The conclusion reflects on the fact that the brain is a powerful tool, but it's up to each individual to take charge of it and intentionally shape their thoughts, actions, and habits to create the life they want. It encourages individuals to use the knowledge gained from the book as a springboard to reach new levels of success, fulfillment, and happiness. Finally, it wraps up by reminding the reader that the journey of brain transformation is ongoing, and there is always more to learn, evolve, and achieve. The conclusion reaffirms that while the brain may be the starting point, the real change happens when we take those brain hacks and put them into action, making them a part of our daily routines and habits. With the right mindset, tools, and strategies, we have the ability to change not just our brains but the course of our lives. Ultimately, the conclusion is a powerful reminder that transformation is possible at any stage of life, and with focus, patience, and the proper tools, anyone can reshape their life and unlock their true potential.